Leaps into the toilet. Hey guys, I think CNN's declaring their porcelain privilege. CNN declares their porcelain privilege today. CNN leaps into the toilet. Network airs nearly 200 uses. They're saying it's 195 uses of crap hole on Friday. And the irony of that is, this was a response to Donald Trump allegedly using the phrase crap hole when referring to other nations. Turns out he never did. It was fake news. So CNN calls themselves proud crap holers over fake news and declares their porcelain privilege. That is just classic. Of course, that goes along with the narrative of 2017. 90% of the news coverage on Donald Trump was negative. 90% of the news coverage on Donald Trump was president. And if you're giving President Trump fair coverage, 90% of the coverage would be positive, about 10% negative. I would say that's probably around my numbers. I would say I'm about 90% positive Trump, about 10% negative. That's fair coverage. They go 90% negative because they're treasonous and hate America. But just like the fake news tried to tell you, President Trump is mentally unfit. They had their moment in the sun today. They were finally about to hear from the doctor. Finally, the physician was about to confirm all of their fake news reports that they made up that President Trump was unfit. Here was the moment of truth for Haley Jackson at MSNBC.
There have been some questions as part of your exam. I'm wondering if you talked to the president about this, about the president's mental fitness. He has pushed back on that, calling himself a staple genius. Can you assess the president's mental fitness for office?
Absolutely. So many of you may have picked up on the fact that we did do a cognitive assessment as part of the exam. And initially, I had no intention of including a cognitive assessment in this exam because, to be honest with you, per all the guidelines that are out there, it's not indicated at this time. A lot of the guidelines would suggest that you do cognitive screening questions, and that if you have a positive or concerning answer in the screening questions, that then you engage with a cognitive screening tool. So I had no intentions whatsoever of doing that, like I said, because I didn't feel it was clinically indicated. And part of the reason I didn't think it was clinically indicated is because I've spent almost every day in the president's presence since January 20, 2000, or last year. When he got into office, and I've seen him every day. I see him 1, 2, sometimes 3 times a day because of the location of my office. We have conversations about many things. Most don't revolve around medical issues at all. But I've got to know him pretty well, and I had absolutely no concerns about his cognitive ability or his neurological function. So I was not going to do a cognitive exam. I had no intention of doing one. The reason that we did the cognitive assessment is plain and simple because the president asked me to do it. He came to me and he said, is there something we can do, a test or some type of screen that we can do to assess my, my cognitive ability? And so I looked into it. And once again, and my initial question was that I didn't think it was indicated and I didn't think we should do it. After looking at some of the guidelines, there are a few guidelines out there that lean in the direction of potentially doing it. The Medicare guidelines and some of the NIH.
Haley Jackson wasn't the only one in there today. Jim Acosta peppered him, and a couple other people were peppering the good doctor today, Rear Admiral Jackson, on his diagnosis, if you will, of President Trump. And of course, he says nothing but positive things. Nothing but positive things about his mental health. Nothing but positive things about his physical health. Nothing but positive things about his genes. He says Trump has strong genes. So it's just all positive. And then there's the wimpy Jim Acosta. There is the self-aggrandizing Haley Jackson at MSNBC. Oh, I'll get him today. I know what I'm going to do. I'm a genius. I'm Haley Jackson from MSNBC, and I'm a genius. I'm going to ask the doctor about Trump's mental health. Ha ha, I'll get the news story. He's mentally unfit. I know I'll get it. And then she asked the doctor, and the good doctor says, yeah, mentally, checks out, great health. Ooh, ouch. Are you going to retract all those news reports, CNN and MSNBC? I bet you they don't retract one. In fact, I bet you they hop right back on the 25th Amendment by the end of the week. Roger Stone joins us on the other side. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back. I'm Roger Stone with my co-host, Owen Schroyer, and you're in The War Room, broadcasting today from our New York bureau. Well, the news is in on the president's physical, and I'm sure that there are libtards gnashing their teeth across the country, particularly over at CNN. The president is in extraordinary health. and his doctors gave him a great prognosis for the future. They did say in their statement that he needs to lose between 10 and 15 pounds. But given the hard and long hours that he puts in, given his notable lack of exercise, they racked up his fine health to good genes. And then came, as Owen just outlined for you, the cropper, an assessment of the president's mental health. He has no signs of dementia or Alzheimer's. He's in fine mental and physical condition. All set for a re-election run in 2020. Owen?
Well, it's just a beautiful thing to me, Roger, because I'm sitting here, and you can recall this too. I'm going back to the Obama years, specifically when Jay Carney was the press secretary. And I remember Jay Carney was basically the joke. Jay Carney was the butt of the joke. Jay Carney was an embarrassment. Jay Carney was laughable. And I remember that kind of used to be the typical expectation when going into some of these press briefings with Jay Carney was, okay, Jay Carney's going to embarrass himself. Jay Carney's going to flop all over himself. Jay Carney's going to deflect every question off. Jay Carney's not going to have any answers. And so Jay Carney used to be the joke. Obama's press secretary used to be the joke. Now we've come and done a 180, and the media is the joke now. Jim Acosta's the joke. Haley Jackson is the joke. April Ryan is the joke. Whoever that day in the libtard media decides to use fake news to try to make the president look bad, they become the joke. Sarah Sanders tears them apart. Rear Admiral Jackson tears them apart. President Trump tears them apart. I mean, isn't that an amazing diametrically opposition to what we, don't you remember when Jay Carney, Jay Carney was such a laughingstock in the media. It was hilarious. The guy couldn't answer a question. Now the media tries to ask Sarah Sanders anything to try to set her up, and she buries them. I mean, it's honestly refreshing, Roger.
CNN is looking more and more like a Saturday Night Live skit every single day. It's really extraordinary the way Jake Tapper, for example, got his knickers in a twist over the president's appallingly honest comments about the state of affairs in Haiti. They thought it was yet another opportunity, yet the president continues to sail forward. Let's look at some of these highlights from today's report on his health. The president is 6'3", weighs 239 pounds. His blood pressure is 122/74, a normal level, and he has a resting heart rate of 68 beats per minute. Only 3 medications, Crestor, aspirin, and Propecia, which has the effect of assisting in male pattern baldness, also good for the plumbing. He also takes up multivitamin. The doctor said his cardiac health is excellent, and that's not an objective, pardon me, that is not the doctor speaking, that comes from objective data. So when asked why the president is so healthy despite his lack of exercise and his diet, the president has a known affinity for cheeseburgers, he said, and I quote, "He has incredibly good genes. It's just the way God made him." By the way, both of Donald's parents, who I had the pleasure and honor of knowing, lived to be a ripe, healthy old age. So the good news for America is Donald Trump is fit as a fiddle. The bad news for the libtards at CNN is he's not going anyplace other than for re-election.
And I don't think we actually, it might even be impossible for us to give it the respect it deserves here, but truly the mental derangement of these people at CNN and MSNBC. When I look at Haley Jackson today and I see her asking Rear Admiral Jackson about Trump's mental health, I'm looking at somebody that really thinks they're about to catch the big one, Roger. They really think they're about to reel in that big fish. And she's sitting there and she's all serious and she's like, but wait, what about Trump's mental health? And she's totally focused. She's totally serious. She's seething at the mouth. She's ready. I'm finally going to get Trump now. I'm going to break the big story about how Trump's mentally unfit. And then just the egg, boom, right there, right on top of her face. But they're not going to stop. It doesn't matter how much they embarrass themselves. It doesn't matter that every day they wake up praying, living, breathing, hoping today is the day they can bring Trump down, failing every day. Roger, I mean, when will these people have a total mental breakdown if they haven't already? Expecting every day to be that day and losing every day.
Continuing from today's report, quoting the Admiral, the president scored 30-30 on a test of cognitive ability, the so-called Montreal Cognitive Assessment, which is used to screen for Alzheimer's or dementia. Quoting the Admiral again, I have no concerns about his cognitive ability whatsoever. So a clean bill of health. God bless you, Mr. President. Meanwhile, all of Washington is a Twitter over the news that Special Counsel Robert Mueller has subpoenaed Steve Bannon for testimony in his ongoing inquiry into Russian collusion. Well, wait a minute. Maybe it is that Mr. Mueller is looking into the firing of James Comey. Why else, of course, would Mr. Mueller also be requesting an interview with the president? If you go back to the Alex Jones show months ago, I predicted there and since that Mueller will bring some kind of, pardon the expression, Owen, trumped up, phony, process-related charge against our president. Now, technically, Mr. Mueller does not have the authority to indict a sitting president, but he can issue a report which charges him with a crime, in this case, a bogus process crime, perjury, obstruction of justice, something along those lines, and that could be the basis for an impeachment move if and only if the Democrats win the House, or if the establishment Republicans currently in control of the House are so duplicitous and so intent on fighting the president's effort to drain the swamp that they would be complicit. Personally, I don't believe that that move is possible without whipping the nation into a Trump is crazy, Trump has Alzheimer's, Trump is nuts hysteria, and that narrative got a major blow today with the results from the president's physical.
Yeah, not just a major blow, but I mean, to me, just a major death blow. I mean, how can you even report on it again after this? I mean, unless they're going to come out and say that Admiral Jackson is a liar, please, I invite you to do that. Please make more enemies, embarrass yourselves even more. But, you know, it's amazing, Roger. It didn't even stop there. You had Kristen Nelson from DHS. She did a public hearing today as well. And you had the Democrats foaming at the mouth against her. You had Cory Booker yelling at her. I mean, it's just unbelievable, these people. How about this, Roger? We're about to go to break. How about the fact that CNN uses the phrase crap hole 200 times on Friday in response to President Trump? Trump never even said it. Trump never even said it, and here they are freaking out about it so much that they declare themselves proud crap holers. How about that? You can't write that.
No, Owen, you're right on the money. This is a loser. You're on the War Room, and we will be right back with the latest. Welcome back. You're at Freedom Command Central. These are your co-hosts, Roger Stone and Owen Schroyer, and you're at the War Room. I'm broadcasting from our new bureau in New York City. Owen joins me from the mothership in Austin. I want to a tip of the hat, Owen, to both my friend Q and those great patriots at the Pipe Fitters Union. What I liked best about that entire interview is that they reiterated yet again, we do not advocate violence. We do not propose violence. We do not defend violence, but we will protect our families. We will protect our Constitution. We will protect our rights as Americans. We are not a bunch of docile panty waists waiting around for masked gunmen to attack. Ours is strictly a reaction. We will be prepared. But let's make it clear to those libtards who right now heads are exploding. We do not advocate violence, but we will not be intimidated by violence.
And really, at the end of the day, Roger, we're just self-preservationists. We just want to preserve our country. We just want to have the greatest country on earth. We just want to live in God's country. And they want to tear it down. And they think that they can just call us Nazis and racists and whatever other ad hominem attack they want to use on us. And it just doesn't work because we're staunch in our defense of ourselves. We're staunch in the defense of our families, and we're staunch in the defense of our country. And we know that that is what they are against. They're against the family. They're against the country. They say it themselves. So absolutely, we do not want violence. And, you know, Roger, if we did, we probably would have violently tried to attempt an overthrow of this country during Obama's 8 years. I think that that proves just right there the fact that we didn't, that we're not violent. We'd rather do things politically.
Well, we had a revolution in this country at the ballot box in the last presidential election, where our candidate was massively outspent, where the polls showed that he could not win, where the mainstream media and the new media were both rigged against him. Why is it, for example, that when the Trump campaign put out a press release, the Google minders called it a promotion? And when Hillary Clinton put out a press release, the Google minders called it an update. That's the difference between millions and millions and millions of openings. So despite the rampant cheating by the mainstream media, Donald Trump pulled off the greatest upset in American political history. Having just been in Washington, I can tell you, Owen, that the professional politicians, the two-party duopoly that have run this country into the ground, they're still not over it. They just can't get over it because it was so wired, so in the bag, so certain. Look, it was going to be Hillary versus Jeb. Jeb understood his role. It was to lose quietly, and then he and his family would continue to make millions as associates of the Clinton crime family. But the American people had a very, very different idea. And professional Washington, the insiders inside the Beltway, have still not gotten over it. It is extraordinary to hang out in their watering holes, to listen to the professional lobbyists and the members of Congress, both Republican, sadly, and Democrat, who continue to denigrate this president and who will not ever give up their resolve to remove him from public office. Now, I know that there are those who will say, oh, Roger, oh, Owen, oh, Alex, you guys are just conspiracy theorists. No, we're conspiracy realists. And we recognize that if the phony, trumped-up Mueller investigation fails to take down the president, well, the establishment has a plan B. Plan B is their 25th Amendment ploy, which I think took a real hit today with the president's physical. But you know how that works, Owen. A majority of the cabinet, plus, in this case, a necessarily duplicitous vice president, could declare our president non compos mentis, unable to discharge his duties, and attempt to remove him. Far-fetched, incredible, impossible, don't bet on it. They have climbed to the top of the Russian collusion ladder, and there's nothing there. The entire Russian collusion takedown of the president has been an abysmal failure. Now we move to Plan B. He's crazy. He's around the bend. He's nuts. Oops, that's not working either. Now they have the backdrop of a roaring economy, a record stock market, thousands, hundreds of thousands of new jobs created, a boom in the housing market, the North and South Koreans at the table talking thanks to the peace efforts of Donald Trump, and therefore we are going to try to ramp up a new hysteria as the backdrop for the 25th Amendment. One of the things that I think is very important for the InfoWarriors to understand, something that Alex Jones has pinpointed from the beginning, the street activities of Antifa, paid for by George Soros and others, the mainstream media efforts to denigrate and destabilize the president. These are interlocking strategies. Now you lay on top of them the efforts by the tech left, Google, Amazon, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, to end our lines of communications, to close down, for example, Facebook feeds that reach millions and millions of Trump supporters. These are interlocking pieces of the same strategy to try to do what they could not do at the ballot box last November. Of these three, the only one that is having some limited success is the attempt by the tech left to literally censor us to death, to strangle our First Amendment rights. They want to be the town square, but in the town square, everyone has equal access. They're using the CDC, which was an act passed by the Congress to try to regulate pornographic content, as a broad rubric to shut down Facebook feeds that are supportive of the president. This entire narrative was also dealt a blow by our heroic friend James O'Keefe, who I'm glad to count as a Stone friend and protege, and all of my compatriots at Project Veritas. Next Monday in the U.S. Senate, there will be a hearing where Senators Ted Cruz and Senators Mike Lee and also Senator Johnson will be able to ask Twitter executives very pointed questions. Get ready, Owen, for some serious fireworks.
And I'll tell you what, Roger, if you really have to take a look at the possibilities here about what Twitter is doing and what they have admitted to, thanks to Project Veritas and the heroic work of James O'Keefe and all of his colleagues over there, just think about the private messages that could have been sent. You can join Twitter at the age of 13. Now, I wasn't in the world of social media when I was 13, thank God, but you can only imagine some of the stuff that gets sent back and forth, and Twitter has access to it and perhaps could be hoarding it. They admit they have access to it, folks.
Welcome back. You're in the right place. This is Freedom Command Central, and you're on the War Room. Now, if you are enjoying the War Room, if you like the expanded coverage that we have here at INFOWARS, if you're enjoying my colleague David Knight with the Real News every morning, the Alex Jones Show, and of course the several hours of programming here at the War Room, recognize that this expansion and the incredible new facility that we're constructing in Austin are only possible because we are completely and totally listener and viewer supported. We don't have any right-wing fat cats writing giant checks to subsidize what we do here at INFOWARS. We count completely and totally on you. And the reason this is good is because, unlike the mainstream media, there is no pressure from our advertisers. There's nobody saying to Alex Jones, you can't cover this, you can't cover that, you can't say this, Owen, you can't say that, Roger, you can't report on this essential story. No, we are completely fact-based here at INFOWARS, and we have that freedom because we have no one central focus in terms of our financial support. That's why it's vital for you to go to the INFOWARS site now and look at some of these extraordinary specials. You can get some of our signature products at extraordinary discounts. Now, my all-time favorite, and I make no secret about this, is Brain Force Plus. I find that Brain Force is terrific for those days when you have to put in a long day and you need to muster that little extra mental and physical energy, but mental clarity and energy. And at $29.95, this is an extraordinary good price. Now, I myself have only recently gone to the auto ship function, and I highly recommend this because before I started on the auto ship function, I would find that because I was so busy, I would run out of my favorite products, the products that help me get through some of these 16 and 18-hour days, and have to wait for restock because our most popular products most definitely fly off the shelves. Never be without by signing up for the auto ship function. We reserve a special catch for those who are enrolled in that program, so you are never without. Brain Force Plus. I highly recommend this program. I use it I use it every day. I could not do these broadcasts without it. mental clarity and energy when you most need it. All natural, very highly rated, as you can see, 4.6 on a scale of 5, literally thousands of honest testimonials from InfoWarriors who have found out about the efficacy of this great product. Folks, Alex Jones said it best. It's a 360 win. You help us, you help yourself. Whether it is products like Secret 12 or Survival Shield, with this flu bug going around, an absolute necessity. Going on an airplane without Survival Shield is a suicide mission these days, given the flu bug running around. I myself bounced back from the flu, and I don't think I would have been hit as hard had I started earlier on Survival Shield. There's also a terrific new immune formula that I highly recommend that fuses the best of the old and new. So go to the store now, whether it is the Super Male Vitality Formula, Immune Wall, there it is. This stuff is terrific. I really believe that this played a terrific role in my comeback. Had I started earlier on it, I think I would have not been felled quite so hard. Oh, and this is a great, great product, because what Alex Jones and the scientists who work with him have done is to fuse some of the best of ancient Chinese and Roman all-natural supplements that have been literally in use for centuries, and then join them with some of the cutting-edge all-natural nutraceuticals. I strongly recommend this product, Immune Wall, as well. Owen?
Yeah, I'm yet to find an InfoWars product that I don't like. I mean, I use multiple InfoWars products every morning and every night. They're great products. We don't make it hard for you to support us. We try to make it easy on you. We provide great discounts. We provide great products. And it is a 360 win, as Alex Jones likes to say. Roger, in the time we have remaining, I don't know if there was something you wanted to get to, but I was wanting to talk to you about this Bannon subpoena. You want to go down that road with me?
Sure, absolutely. Because I think it proves, Owen, what we have been predicting here at InfoWars for a while. The only reason that Mr. Mueller would want to subpoena Mr. Bannon, also known as Sloppy Steve, is to see what he knows about the president's deliberations regarding the firing of James Comey. Now, I have been told that associates of Mr. Bannon have also been subpoenaed. And that's because they want to ask them, well, did Bannon say anything to you about the Comey firing? What it tells me is that this entire narrative, Owen, has gone a full cycle. Having found no collusion with the Russians, we're now back all the way to whether the president in some way violated the law in his decision to dispatch Mr. Comey. Even though Alan Dershowitz, hardly a right-wing Republican, has argued that because Comey serves at the president's will, it is impossible to commission a crime in his discharge. But that is what I think the Bannon subpoena is all about. The other question, which I just have to throw out there, is why not just ask Bannon to come in voluntarily? Why is a subpoena necessary unless, of course, you're looking for a headline?
Yeah, and I have to wonder if some of the motivation as well wasn't based on the quotes or the alleged quotes in the book, Fire and Fury, where Bannon is saying that Trump Jr. was guilty of treason, you know, because that would obviously be something that piques Mueller's interest. And I'm wondering if that might come into the fray as well. But they've also said, Roger, that even if there's no crime, you can still be guilty of obstruction of justice. I mean, how incredible is that? They make up a crime, they fabricate a crime, and then they spend a year looking for evidence to corroborate the crime that they made up. And even though they find no evidence and the crime doesn't exist, they still think they can charge Trump for obstruction of justice when he wasn't obstructing any crimes.
Well, that's why these 2018 elections are so vitally important. That's why you and I, Owen, have worked together to try to highlight and cover some of the very best young fighting conservative candidates for the House in the upcoming election. I still believe that those Republicans who are wringing their hands about losing the House don't recognize that in politics, a day is a lifetime. And if the Democrats want to run on impeachment and the Republicans run on jobs and prosperity, the Trump agenda, we will win the off-year elections. There is no reason today for panic. They have nothing to talk about that is positive. They have no positive program to lift the country or make America great again. All they have is seething hatred for Donald Trump. The president has a program of reform. It's working. And those Republicans who may be considering running from the president do so at their own peril, in my opinion.
Yeah, so we're going to continue, Roger and I, on that movement to look for the candidates, the strong conservative candidates that are up and coming in your area. So be sure to stay tuned to the War Room as we develop here in 2018, because we need to get people in office who are going to get behind Trump's agenda and who aren't going to cater to fake news to try to have him impeached, whether it be the 25th Amendment or some Russian fake collusion story. So 2018 is going to be paramount, and we know that they'll go full bore to try to remove our president from office because he wants to put America first.
Many of you may be familiar with former Minnesota Governor Jesse Ventura, a great friend of this show and a great friend of mine. Now, Governor Ventura was a professional wrestler in the entertainment business before winning an upset victory in the election for governor of his home state of Minnesota, beating both the Republican and the Democrat and bringing in an era of reform. Today, Governor Ventura is a great advocate for the legalization of marijuana, the U.S. Constitution, and against the deep state spying on every single one of us. So the idea of Hulk Hogan, whose real name is Terry Bollea, a great entertainer, a Republican, a resident of the state of Florida, as a U.S. Senate candidate is not nearly as far-fetched as it might seem. I am advocating that Mr. Bollea seriously look at this race. We need people in Washington who don't come from the discipline of politics. I gave an interview yesterday to Patrick Slevin. You can see it at patrickslevin.com, in which I outlined the possibilities for a race. Now, Florida Republican Governor Rick Scott is said to be eyeing this race. If you go to Mr. Slevin's terrific site called The Influentials, you can see my interview with Patrick Slevin, in which we talk about the Trump revolution, the future of the Republican Party, and why the Republican establishment can send a John Kasich or some other turkey in 2020 if they want to challenge our president, and he will dispatch them again. And yes, I'm very serious about the idea of Hulk Hogan, better known as Terry Bollea, running for the U.S. Senate and challenging Florida Republican Governor Rick Scott for the Republican nomination. Those debates would be terrific. And yes, I recommend that Mr. Bollea start with a body slam of the governor.
It's time to make America first, brother. Maybe it would start off something like that. You know, actually, the WWE has had Kane, a famous wrestler, Kane, run for office in Knoxville, Tennessee. Glenn Jacobs, I believe is his real name. And then they had another former wrestler run for office somewhere else. It was like the Human Meatball or something. I forget that guy's name. He lost the first time. He was going to try to run again. I can't remember his name. Of course, you've got Linda McMahon, the wife of Vince McMahon, who is the founder of the WWE. She's in charge of the Small Business Association in the Trump administration. So, and even if you ever watched wrestling, they always try to have political undertones to their, skits or storylines or whatever it is. So they've always kind of been politically inclined over there at the WWE and typically conservative. That's why I'm kind of shocked that The Rock is going so hardcore liberal, not necessarily in his policies, but who he's cozying up to. He seems to be siding with the liberals that don't like Trump and being friendly with them. So, but I like the idea, Roger. Anyone who's from the outside, get them in. Anyone who's in, get them out.
Well, look, I think we both recognize that right now, elitists across the country are vomiting over this idea. It's absurd. First of all, wrestlers, professional wrestlers, are entertainers. Is it a coincidence that two of our greatest presidents came from an entertainment background? The great Ronald Reagan and, of course, Donald Trump. Sure, Donald Trump built a multi-billion-dollar real estate empire, but he was always an entertainer. 14 seasons, probably 15 seasons of a popular network-based television show, beauty pageants, wrestling tournaments. He has always been an extraordinary entertainer. I'm reminded that they asked former President Ronald Reagan whether his background as an actor had hampered his ability to be president. He said, you know, I don't know how a guy who wasn't an actor could do this job. Terry Bollea, if you're listening, please run. We'd love to have you come to the War Room for an interview.
Yeah, and if there's anyone else out there within the WWE ranks that is looking for a run at an office in 2018 or in the future, we'd gladly have you on too. Like I said, I think Glenn Jacobs in Knoxville, Tennessee is one of the names that comes to mind. But to me, Roger, what we're doing right now is we're trying to identify those individuals coming from the outside that have the conservative beliefs, that have Trump's agenda at heart and in mind. And those are the types of people we want to get into office. This is no shade to the Trey Gowdys out there, who I think is a great politician. This is no shade to the Rand Pauls out there that have been in office for a while. I believe that there are good politicians. But the point is, the mean and the medium of D.C. and of Congress are career politicians, and that's what we have to end when you end up with people like Nancy Pelosi, Dianne Feinstein, and Maxine Waters running California into a ditch. I mean, you want to talk about a crap hole? Let's talk about California run by the Democrats, you know?
Well, you're absolutely right. Now, to be very clear, we here at INFOWARS do not advocate the election of these candidates. We're not electioneering. But what we are doing is covering their campaigns because the mainstream media refuses to do so. All we want to do is bring your attention to their candidacies to make your own judgment. So Owen and I will continue to scour the country looking for bright, attractive, young, dynamic, independent, conservative candidates running for the House or in some cases the Senate and cover their campaigns, something the mainstream media refuses to do. You had a terrific interview with, Tim Kavanaugh, I think, last week.
Kevin Kavanaugh in Arizona. Yeah.
A very dynamic, very impressive candidate. We've had Omar Navarro on the show. We've had Carla Spalding on the show. We are looking for exceptional men and women who will take the plunge. Having worked with many candidates for public office, this is an all-consuming activity. When you run for public office, you have to be all in. You have to eat it, live it, sleep it, breathe it. It takes over your life. It's a mammoth undertaking. My respect goes to those who climb in the arena, Owen. It's easy to stand on the sidelines and point out how Omar Navarro could do something better or how Carla Spalding ought to give a better speech. Why don't you get in the arena? Those are the people that I respect. There is no shame, I must say, in running and losing. Those who run and lose are making an investment because when you run again, you will run and win. Some of the finest candidates that I've worked with in a 40-year career in American politics lost their early races. That's when they learned, and they were better candidates the next go-round. So if you're looking at a House seat and people tell you it's impossible, don't try, so-and-so can't be beat, they've got a lock, I say nonsense. Credit goes to those who have the courage to climb in the arena, to join the clash of bigger ideas, and to support the president's agenda to make America great. We're going to continue to bring exceptional candidates to the War Room for your review.
Yeah, and a couple others out there, Paul Nealon, Michael Snyder, Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai. I mean, these are the people we're bringing. All right, Roger, we got 90 seconds left. I want to leave you on a high note, if you will, with a little bit of a laugh. Jennifer Rubin, a Washington Post reporter and an MSNBC contributor, Jennifer Rubin tweets out today, Trump got a cognitive test, not a psychiatric exam. Does not rule out most of what's in the DSM. So, Roger, even though it's now official and it's been reported, that Trump is mentally fit, he's fully cognizant, and he has his full mental capacity, the liberals are still clinging to the hope of the 25th Amendment, just like you predicted.
Well, extraordinarily, I read a piece in Esquire by Sam Tannenhouse last week that says that there's a coterie of Reagan Republicans in Washington who remain implacably opposed to Trump. And he listed among them Jennifer Rubin. Really? Jennifer Rubin's a Reagan Republican? Also on list was speechwriter David Frum. Really? David Frum was never for Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, so David Brock is too.
Yeah, right. Well, exactly. Look, this is part and parcel of the inside the Beltway elitists who just can't get over the fact that Donald Trump won, and he's not going anywhere for the next 3 years other than up.
Stock market hits 26,000 today. If Trump is mentally unfit, what does that make Obama? My goodness.